is why
the bank that benefits from it, not the banker.
No, the whistleblower is talking about managers manipulating the disease fund. Exactly.
That's a fraud.
Using it to loan
exactly.
People
That's
absolutely tampering with trust.
Sorry, Kiran. I know you're going to ask your question. I mean, because our viewers are familiar with this. At the time when interest rate on treasury bills were very high, well and above the deposit interest rates. So it is possible. I'm not saying that what happened. It is possible that, so look, this account that has been idle for the past 2-3 years, let me quickly move this one, buy TBs, and then once 90 days, once you're going to quickly put it back.
The branch manager doesn't buy T-bills.
No, he could just move it.
People who trade in T-bills are not more than 2 or 3 people in the head office. It's not the branch manager that buys it.
I am coming to you now.
Such trust funds are sometimes unlawfully utilized by fraudulent bankers to do private business.
Especially where they know the deceased is deceased. The owner of the account is
and
dead.
they are the relationship when they do that.
Gentlemen, just last year, a well-known business mogul from the East, the transporter, had about 2.5 billion naira posted into his account. He questioned it. He called the MD of the bank. Where is this money coming from? Were you people doing business with my money or something? But I don't know where this money is coming from. Please reverse it. And it was reversed. So this is the kind of funds we're talking about. He said, please reverse this money because I don't know where it's coming from. Because he's a sincere person, you know. And so there are movements of money in the banks manipulated by bank officials, maybe unknown to some bank officials, and maybe unknown to the authority of the bank. So what I'm trying to ask you is this: in the face of it all, how can a beneficiary access the money left by the deceased? Should there be a role of the bank to inform whoever is the next of kin? Because of course every bank has details of either next of kin or whatever notification that they have during the opening of the account. Should the bank not have the responsibility of saying, look, this deceased person was our customer and this is what he put down in that column, and of course engage the beneficiaries?
Well, just like we said, since we are recommending a review, because ordinarily, like we said, under the regulation, maybe every 3 or 6 months, they are supposed to actually reach out to the customer. I mean, even for the purpose of marketing, your account has been dormant. Please come on. And some of them have actually reached us, especially with this, what do you call it, electronic systems. You will see
by email,
or by SMS. You see that. Now, perhaps arising from that, when after maybe several such efforts, maybe that is when they could extend it by way of regulation, of course, like we're saying, since we're trying to reform the system. But ordinarily, it is their responsibility to reach out to your account government. So if after 2 or 3 efforts, I mean, no response, perhaps it's now time to escalate the matter to the next of kin, or particularly maybe, if possible, the regulatory authorities. I mean, it's all part of what we say. And then particularly more efforts. You are talking of still realizing the perhaps for the purpose of calculation, but ordinarily any deposit in a bank, you can't preclude the bank from using it because that is what they are there for.
No, but
if it's
discouraging them from using it to profit from it if they cannot do their own part of the bucket. You see, what I'm saying is that there may be regulation, but there is no robust intention or interest from the side of the banks to contact the owner of that dormant account. So there has to be in that regulation some disincentive or some sanction so that they will contact this person. For instance, the regulation says that the moment an account is dormant for 9 months, the remaining 3 months to make it fully dormant after 1 year, the bank has obligation to look for him to come and reactivate the account. Exactly. The question is, do they do it?
That's the experience would appear to be no. Okay, now we indicated that we have a torrent of tweets. Kirian and I are having to go. All right, we have another set of tweets that will join what we have. But let's just quickly enter this caveat. Kirian, I think it's important for the benefit of our viewers. If you're out there and somebody calls you from a bank and say you are the next of kin, to this account and that we have not heard from this customer for the past 2 years. Give us your BVN, give us your debit card number, give us your number behind it. That is a 419 call. Don't fall for it. We have had scammers in the past. That's particularly what they use, is scamming some people abroad. They will say, oh, you had seed deposit, the person left it for you, you are the named beneficiary, you will need to pay some advance money. Don't fall for it. What you need to do, physically go to the bank yourself, assuming there's any such thing, thank the person, you do well, for calling, as Nigerians will say, no problem. At which branch? Physically go there, and then go there with somebody who is knowledgeable, so that you can have clear instructions. If you are not such a person and you are looking to harvest where you have not sown or where your testator has not sown, you get into trouble. So that's the caveat. Let's take.
Okay, we have some tweets which shows that many Nigerians are interested in this topic, and of course that's why we have many of them here. Let's start with Smart. He says, what normally happens in this scenario is that most bank staff may reactivate the account, i.e. it is dormant account, and eventually make away with the money.
Law Alpha say, acquiring letters of administration takes a lot of time and its attendant rigors. And some people may forfeit the money in the process to the banks, who in turn pocket such monies, because banks tend to know the value of the money more than depositors.
Now, O.T. Zokbea he said, if the family later finds out after 20 years about such money, is there a possibility of getting back the money, especially when banks merge?
That's right. That's a very pertinent question. You have legacy accounts and so on. Okay, Gabriel Kambai, I used to think that when accounts become dormant, the funds will be transferred to the government coffers to finance public projects. But I hope with a crystallized database on BVN, the CBN and commercial banks will be able to know when a person is dead and contact the next of kin of the deceased. Titus
Monday Knock. That is why the next of kin document should be properly preserved, and one should have a family confidant to entrust the keeps of such and other related details for reference. It is, however, unfortunate how sometimes the living have the audacity to prey on the dead. So unfortunate.
Yeah, Akeju Olagbaju, in Nigeria, the families have the means to trace such account and will always go to probate court to assert the claim. The fact that the TSA is working makes it easier to aggregate the network of deposit accounts into a single unit. I don't understand this point.
All right, Ibrahim Molduaji said CBN needs to come up with policies to discourage financial secrecy, where depositors with an amount exceeding 5 million must be jointly signed with the next of kin to avoid families being robbed by bankers. A dormant account, especially with a huge amount for 5 years, should be known to CBN.
Chidi Amadi, most issues in Nigeria are like this, very unclear.
Now, Chris Simeon, this kind of issue is not a surprise to me. Some years ago, I discussed with two of my colleagues who are financial experts. They said such bank deposits would be pushed to a dormant account, and then in due course, the money will be shared among top bank managers.
Gabriel, come by again. We just want to take the privilege of having this second tweet. In Nigeria, it's very common for a person to have multiple bank accounts with many banks and still don't want his family members to know about some of his savings. Remember, in the case of death, the bank will not contact your family or next of kin. At least use a diary.
Jack Solomon, he said, one way to help your family with this is to keep an up-to-date list of your accounts and investments, either with your will or give someone a password for access to a document containing this information. Nigerian banks would like to keep the monies for their own use. Please wisen up.
Let's Google Silvanos. National Assembly should make a law mandating commercial banks to publish every account that remains dormant for up to 6 months, 6 months consecutively, so family members of the owners of such accounts will be alerted. A situation where banks unlawfully use such funds privately is unacceptable.
Now, Mike Anyako says, in a scenario where the families are not aware, the funds will continue to be part of the bank's deposits. Some banks cleverly push the deposits to dormant accounts to avoid interest payments. During the last consolidation, some of these deposits were fraudulently converted into equity by some banks in order to meet up with the 25 billion naira minimum paid up capital. They reserved the transactions after consolidation, or they reversed the transactions after consolidation. There was no real inflow of funds into the banks. What's the after effect? Continued distrust in the system.
All right, Kieran, I will skip to Adekunle Olayemi because we're taking Mike Ayakwa and others. Adekunle Olayemi tweets, says some bankers are doing it. They are using some people's accounts to do business or withdraw the money from the bank account and use it to enrich themselves. Government should find a way to stop this habit.
DW Nigeria Limited. This topic is out of the box, sort of. I have thought about that too in my mind. I think CBN does something about it also. But again, it can be that such monies could be shared by the bank people. I don't know, really. We need more info on this.
Now, Thomas Mbangu tweets, now there's criminality going on in some banks in Nigeria. When one dies without the family knowing the account details, the bank hardly informs the family members. One of my banker friends told me that if it is discovered a worker in a bank informs the family members, he will be sacked.
Yes, what Subuto says, I want to know what banks do with accounts that have been dormant for as long as 20 years.
Joseph, it's a criminal offense. After all, they have details of the deceased customers. They should contact the family to improve their living standards.
Kumo Augustine, bank executives and officials are happy when their customers with huge credit balances fail to operate their accounts for a prolonged period. If such persons are presumed dead, then the banks use such monies as solid financial base.
Now, let's take this one from Wahid. Wahid, it says, Joseph very briefly, it says banks are declaring huge profits yearly while the citizens are financially suffering. Do something. But this is Wahid. It is unfortunate that banks in Nigeria swallow those kinds of deposits. However, if the disease is one that is indebted to the bank, his or her family will be contacted at the appropriate time.
Of course.
Yes, to continue the process and recover the money.
Omobola Babs, one way to help sanitize the banking system vis-a-vis today's discussion is for CBN to make use of the BVN. With BVN, family members of such deceased persons can be tracked and informed accordingly. But then, do we have people who are sincere enough without conniving with banks?
Now, Osman Banu Kanto tweets, now there are situations where after obtaining court affidavit, closing the account of the deceased, outstanding payments are made into the account and such monies remain trapped forever.
Sani Michael Amokoji, even though the deceased left behind details of the next of kin, banks in Nigeria will never contact him or her. This is also the practice of many insurance companies. Stringent conditions are given to prevent next of kin from claiming the money. This has to change.
Corey Mustafa tweets, the CBN should channel such monies, that is to say bank balances of deceased persons unclaimed, to the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry for proper usage if the deceased beneficiaries are not found.
Now, Yusuf Gaya, regarding monies of deceased customers in banks, rather than stop the banks from investing the balances suggested by my learned friend Adamu Modibo, perhaps banks should be made to share the profits they get from investing such credit balances.
Now, Izuchi Marios tweets, this topic of managing bank balances of deceased persons is very crucial. God bless your guests. They have said it all. I hope the federal government will take swift action on this. These banks and the so-called regulations or regulators are making life a hell for living Nigerians.
Benga Obamedo, I am fully in support of Mr. Shego Ajibola. If these recommendations are followed, it will lighten the workload. Of course, it says, state clearly on the account opening forms the would-be beneficiary. 2, make letter of administration easier to acquire, among others.
Now, Subuloye tweets, till now, no bank in Nigeria recognizes next of kin when it comes to the issue of money. They will only ask for letters of administration.
Now, it's enough from Festus Akimbewa. It's tough to know what to do when a family member dies. Talk less of the bureaucracy surrounding the financial issues of the deceased. We should learn to plan for the future, and there should be a law that would make it easier for family members to have access to deceased bank deposits.
Now, MK Ibrahim tweets, now the assets of thousands of deceased Nigerians in foreign banks have been lost because of stringent laws. In some countries, beneficiaries need wills, death certificates, autopsies, certificate from director of funeral naira and evidence of tax and utility payments. These are some of the monies in the Swiss bank accounts where you have secret codes. If you don't have that secret code, just forget it.
Yes.
But we are talking about monies within our jurisdiction.
Exactly.
This bank, if you can see the names of banks wherever you are going now. You all have accounts. If you don't have a BVN, you cannot even do transactions. We're talking about financial inclusion.
Exactly.
And then we have millions of Nigerians. So what happens when that person passes on? That's what our guests have been talking about, and what our tweets have also been contributing to.
Now, D-Man, Islam strongly requires all followers to have a kind will list of belongings, but the sharing formula is preordained, so this is not an issue, but just the ignorance. That's
That's right. That's a demand I was talking about.
Yes.
Islamic. Well, of course, those are the tweets that we can accommodate. I just, in some jurisdictions, in the state of New York, for instance, when an account hasn't been operated, I wouldn't know whether the law has changed, and it's been so for so many years, the money goes into a trust, and that trust is held by the state of New York. And the money is not available to the banks to be transacting business, which is what Adamu Modibo and indeed other guests, Ajibola as well, have been saying, that banks, if that is the current practice, cannot be profiting from the bank balances of their deceased customers without paying interest to those particular accounts and therefore to the estate of the deceased persons.
And more to that is the fact that some individuals in some banks do this without the knowledge of the bank's authority. And that's what the whistleblower came up with in the first place.
That's right.
Yes.
And we do hope that you've enjoyed this conversation. There are many opportunities for regulatory reform. There are also many opportunities for legal reform. In other words, if you need to have amendments to particular sections of the law or extant laws, we hope that the lawmakers, particularly the National Assembly, would take advantage of it, because banking is on the exclusive legislative list and therefore it matters strictly for the National Assembly.
Okay.
So, Kieran, let's sign up our guests, and I appreciate that.
At this point, we'd like to appreciate all our guests, for doing justice to this very important topic. First, Adamu Modibo, former managing director, Sigma Pensions, and of course a banker, former banker.
And a lawyer.
And a lawyer as well. See, this lawyer, okay, as a lawyer as well.
Thank you, Thank you, Kirian.
And of course, Afamo Sigwe, former Secretary General of the Nigerian Bar Association, also a lawyer. We thank you for coming. All right. And Mohammed Ali Baba, former director at the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you very much.
From Lagos, Shegun Ajibola, former president, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. We thank you for your very crucial contribution this morning on the show.
He's also a lawyer.
He's also a lawyer. You have dominated the making this difficult for us.
All right, let's go over now to our sports desk. There's no law in sports at this time.